The Salem Witch's Curse. Mary has always been fascinated by the witch trials in Salem, Massachusetts. She's read countless books and articles about the trials and has always dreamed of visiting the town. One day, she decides to take the plunge and plans a trip to Salem to see the sights for herself. When Mary arrives in Salem, she's struck by the beauty of the town. The cobblestone streets, quaint houses, and historic buildings all seem to radiate a sense of history and mystery. She makes her way to the Salem Witch Museum, where she spends hours learning about the trials and the people who were accused of witchcraft. As she walks through the town, Mary can feel the weight of the past on her shoulders. She imagines what it must have been like for the accused witches and wonders if their spirits still haunt the town. Despite her growing unease, Mary continues to explore the town, drawn by a sense of curiosity and fascination. At the end of the day, Mary returns to her hotel room, exhausted but exhilarated by her experience in Salem. She can't wait to see more of the town and to uncover the secrets of its past. As Mary settles into her hotel room, she begins to feel a strange presence in the room. She hears creaks and whispers, and she feels as though someone is watching her. She dismisses these feelings as mere nerves, but as the night wears on, they only become more intense. In the middle of the night, Mary is jolted awake by a loud noise. She sits up in bed and sees the ghostly figure of a woman standing at the foot of her bed. The woman is dressed in old-fashioned clothes, and her face is twisted in a look of agony. Mary is frozen with fear, unable to move or even scream. The ghostly woman disappears, but Mary can feel her presence lingering in the room. She spends the rest of the night huddled under the covers, too afraid to move. The next day, Mary asks the hotel staff about the room she's staying in. They tell her that it's rumored to be haunted by the ghost of a woman who was accused of witchcraft during the trials. Mary realizes that her curiosity about the town may have led her into a dangerous situation, but she can't help but feel drawn to the mystery and history of Salem. Despite her unsettling experience in the hotel, Mary is determined to learn more about the haunted history of Salem. She signs up for a ghost tour, hoping to see more of the town's famous haunted sites. The tour takes Mary through some of the most haunted locations in Salem, including the courthouse where the trials were held, and the cemetery where many of the accused witches are buried. As the tour guide tells stories of ghosts and hauntings, Mary can feel the hair on the back of her neck standing up. Suddenly, Mary hears a voice whispering her name. She turns around, but no one is there. She begins to feel as though she's being followed, and she can sense a presence that seems to be getting closer and closer. At the end of the tour, Mary feels a sense of relief. She's seen some of the most haunted sites in Salem and has satisfied her curiosity about the town's dark past. However, she can't help but feel as though something has followed her back to her hotel room. She can feel a presence lurking in the shadows, and she knows that she may have to confront the ghosts of Salem's past once and for all. The next morning, Mary wakes up feeling drained and exhausted. She can't shake the feeling that she's being watched, even in the daylight. As she walks through the streets of Salem, she notices that the townspeople seem to be staring at her with suspicion and fear. Mary decides to visit the courthouse where the witch trials were held. As she stands in the room where the trials took place, she begins to feel a sense of dread. Suddenly, she hears a voice whispering in her ear, telling her to leave Salem and never return. Mary tries to leave the courthouse, but she finds herself unable to move. She feels as though she's being held in place by an unseen force. She hears the voice again, this time more urgent and insistent. She realizes that she's being cursed by the ghost of one of the accused witches. Panicking, Mary runs out of the courthouse and back to her hotel room. She spends the rest of the day locked in her room, too afraid to leave. She begins to feel as though the curse is affecting her physically, and she's plagued by headaches and nausea. Mary knows that she needs to find a way to lift the curse, but she's not sure where to turn. She begins to research the history of the witch trials, and learns that there were several people who were accused of witchcraft, but never convicted. She wonders if there's someone in Salem who can help her lift the curse before it's too late. Determined to lift the curse, Mary begins to ask around Salem for help. She meets an older woman who claims to be a medium and offers to help Mary communicate with the ghost who cursed her. Mary is skeptical but desperate, so she agrees to the woman's offer. The medium takes Mary to a quiet spot in the woods outside of Salem and begins to perform a ritual to contact the spirit world. As the medium chants and performs her ritual, Mary can feel the hairs on the back of her neck standing up. Suddenly, the air around her begins to feel thick and heavy. She sees a figure emerging from the woods, shrouded in mist. The figure speaks to the medium, who relays the message to Mary. The ghost claims to be the spirit of one of the accused witches who was wrongfully executed during the trials. The ghost tells Mary that she is cursed because she came to Salem seeking to profit from the town's dark history. Mary protests, insisting that she only came to Salem out of curiosity. The ghost tells Mary that the only way to lift the curse is to make a pilgrimage to the cemetery where the accused witches are buried and apologize for her ignorance. With the medium's help, Mary sets out to make things right with the ghosts of Salem's past. She hopes that by doing so, she can finally put the curse behind her and move on from her terrifying experience. Mary and the medium make their way to the cemetery where the accused witches were buried. As they walk among the graves, Mary can feel a sense of unease creeping over her. She's not sure how she's going to be able to lift the curse, but she's determined to try. The medium tells Mary to approach each grave and apologize for her ignorance and insensitivity. Mary hesitates, but the medium urges her on. As Mary speaks her apologies, she can feel a weight lifting from her shoulders. Suddenly, she hears a sound behind her. She turns to see the ghost of one of the accused witches standing before her. The ghost tells Mary that she has been forgiven and that the curse has been lifted. Overwhelmed with relief, Mary thanks the ghost and the medium. She feels a sense of peace that she hasn't felt since arriving in Salem. As she leaves the cemetery, she knows that she will never forget the ghosts of the witch trials. Mary returns to her hotel room and packs her bags. She's ready to leave Salem behind and start a new chapter of her life. As she drives away from the town, she looks back one last time, wondering if she'll ever truly be free of the ghosts of the past. Days pass, and Mary thinks she's finally left Salem's ghosts behind. But as she settles back into her routine, strange things begin to happen around her. She hears strange noises in her apartment at night, and her possessions seem to move around on their own. Mary tries to convince herself that it's just her imagination, but she can't shake the feeling that something is following her. She begins to have unsettling dreams about the ghosts of Salem's past, and she wakes up in a cold sweat. One night, as Mary is preparing to go to bed, she sees a figure standing in her bedroom doorway. It's the ghost of Giles Corey, the man who was famously pressed to death during the witch trials. He appears angry and vengeful, and Mary can feel the weight of his gaze on her. Terrified, Mary tries to leave her apartment, but the door won't budge. She's trapped with the ghost of Giles Corey, who seems to be growing more and more agitated with each passing moment. Mary realizes that she needs to find a way to communicate with Giles Corey and understand what he wants from her. She remembers the medium from Salem and decides to seek out her help once again. She hopes that the medium can help her understand why Giles Corey is haunting her and how she can make him go away. Mary visits the medium and tells her about the terrifying encounter with Giles Corey's ghost. The medium explains that sometimes ghosts are attached to a specific person or object, and they won't leave until their message is delivered. The medium performs a ritual to communicate with Giles Corey's ghost, and she's able to understand that he's angry because he believes Mary is involved in witchcraft. He thinks she's a descendant of the people who falsely accused and condemned him and the other innocent people during the Salem witch trials. The medium tries to explain to Giles Corey's ghost that Mary has nothing to do with witchcraft and that she's simply a visitor in Salem. But the ghost doesn't seem to believe her, and his anger only grows. The medium advises Mary to visit the Salem Witch Museum to learn more about the history of the trials and to see if she can find any evidence that will prove she's not related to the accusers. Mary follows the medium's advice and spends the day at the museum, studying the exhibits and reading about the trials. By the end of the day, Mary has found several pieces of evidence that prove she's not related to the accusers. She brings the evidence to the medium, who performs another ritual to communicate with Giles Corey's ghost. The medium shows him the evidence, and he finally accepts that Mary is not involved in witchcraft and leaves her alone. With Giles Corey's ghost finally gone, Mary feels relieved and decides to leave Salem the next day. However, before she goes, she visits the graveyard where many of the accused witches were buried. As she walks among the graves, she feels a strange energy around her. Suddenly, she hears a whispering voice calling her name. She turns around to see the ghostly figure of a woman who introduces herself as Sarah Good, one of the accused witches. Sarah tells Mary about the injustices that took place during the trials and how she and many others were falsely accused and executed. She also tells Mary that she's been searching for someone to help clear her name and that Mary is the one she's been waiting for. Mary feels overwhelmed but determined to help Sarah and the other accused witches. She spends the next few days researching and compiling evidence to prove their innocence. Finally, she presents her findings to the city council, who agree to reopen the case and clear the names of the accused witches. Mary feels a sense of closure and peace as she watches the spirits of the accused witches finally rest in peace. As she leaves Salem, Mary feels grateful for the experience and the opportunity to right a wrong from the past. She knows that the spirits of Salem will always be with her, and she will never forget the lessons she learned during her time in the haunted town. After several years have passed, Mary decides to return to Salem to see how the town has changed. She remembers her previous visit and the ghostly encounters she had. As she enters the town, she feels a chill down her spine, as if the spirits of the past are still lingering. However, as she walks around the town, she notices that things have changed. The buildings are more modern, and the town has become a popular tourist destination. She decides to visit the Salem Witch Museum to learn more about the history of the town and the witch trials. Inside the museum, Mary is surprised to see an exhibit dedicated to the accused witches, including Sarah Good and Giles Corey. She feels a sense of pride knowing that she played a part in helping to clear their names. As she leaves the museum, she notices a group of people huddled together, whispering about a ghostly sighting. Mary's curiosity gets the best of her, and she decides to investigate. She follows the group to a small cemetery on the outskirts of town. As she approaches, she sees the ghostly figure of Sarah Good, who nods at her in recognition. Mary feels a sense of comfort knowing that the spirits of the past still exist in Salem, and she is glad that she played a part in helping to bring closure to their stories. Mary leaves Salem with a newfound appreciation for the history and the spirits that still haunt the town. She knows that she will always carry a piece of Salem with her, and she looks forward to future visits to the haunted town. As Mary prepares to leave Salem, she decides to take one last walk through the town to say goodbye. As she walks through the streets, she feels a strange sensation, as if someone is watching her. She turns around and sees the ghostly figure of Giles Corey standing behind her. She feels a sense of dread, knowing the terrible fate he suffered during the witch trials. But instead of feeling anger or sadness, Giles looks at her with a sense of peace and gratitude. He thanks her for helping to clear his name and those of the other accused witches. He tells her that their spirits can finally rest in peace, thanks to her efforts. Mary feels a sense of relief, knowing that she was able to help bring justice to the spirits of Salem. Giles then fades away into the mist, leaving Mary feeling both saddened and comforted by the encounter. She knows that her time in Salem has come to an end, but she also knows that the memories and spirits of the town will stay with her forever. Mary leaves Salem with a newfound sense of purpose, knowing that she has played a part in helping to bring closure to the spirits of the past. She looks forward to future adventures, but she knows that Salem will always hold a special place in her heart. As Mary leaves Salem, she can't help but reflect on everything she experienced during her time there. She feels grateful for the opportunity to have helped the spirits of the accused witches and Giles Corey find peace, but she also knows that there is still work to be done. Mary decides to share her story with the world, hoping to bring attention to the injustices that occurred during the Salem witch trials. She writes a book detailing her experiences and research, which becomes a bestseller. Her book sparks renewed interest in the witch trials and leads to further investigation and discussion about the events that took place in Salem. The town becomes a site for historical tourism, and visitors come from all over the world to learn about the history and the ghosts that still haunt the town. Mary also uses her newfound fame to raise awareness about social justice issues and the importance of speaking out against injustice. She becomes an advocate for those who have been wronged and encourages others to use their voices to make a difference. In the end, Mary's journey to Salem becomes much more than just a research trip. It becomes a catalyst for change and an inspiration for others to make a difference in the world.